people tend to think, many Jewish people tend to think of there's religious Judaism and then there's secular Judaism. It ain't so. There's a worldview that's cultivated in certain fundamental principles. Some people find ritual to be very useful to awaken them to sensitivity, to awaken them to a sense of the transcendent. And but if a person is doing all the rituals and then turning around and being nasty to the next the next person, that's not Jewish religion. That's not it. You can do all the rituals in the world. If you're not a decent human being with other human beings, you're not religious, or you're maybe preoccupied with ritual, but that's it. Hopefully you're growing because the rituals, maybe you're cultivating some sensitivity so that you eventually become a kind, compassionate human being. Another Jewish person could have no interest in rituals at all, think that it's superstitious and silly and, who knows what they think, find no use for it, but could be the most righteous person in the world because they have a sense of the sacredness of the lives around them and are caring for their own life as well as the lives of other people. They're looking to see the goodness in humanity and in the world and cultivating that. So that separation, that it's a false separation, that, and maybe because we've so often been in cultures where religion was something that was in the vessel of a church or, in some religious institution, that perhaps the Jewish people, I kind of think of it as like a Native American connection there, where there's a whole worldview. And you can't separate the day-to-day moments from a sense of Jewish spirituality. There are some fundamental principles in Judaism that the central teaching of our faith is that there's a oneness. We say, Shema Yisrael, hear Israel, the eternal is one, that there's a unity in creation. And we seek that to discover that unity, that it's a unity that's often hidden under the facade of the brokenness, but that's really there to be transformed, to discover the unity. And so, with people of the relationship of Judaism to other religions is that from a Jewish perspective, there's not an expectation that other people will become Jewish as part of the process to healing the world. The urging of Judaism is that the Jewish people should learn how to be good Jews, the Christians should learn how to be good Christians, that Buddhists should be beautiful Buddhists, that you can be righteous from all of these different paths. And that in a sense, more and more I understand it, and my teachers taught me that, in a sense, there's a global organism of humanity and beyond humanity. We're all DNA, all of life. There's my dear cousin, the fruit fly, is not so far away from me in the genome system. And the more I can cultivate that knowing of connected to bigger life than my own, the more I discover that unity principle that's the core of Jewish belief. The more I can see the complementary nature of Christianity with Judaism, the bigger my world gets. The more I can appreciate the mindfulness meditations of Buddhism, the bigger my world gets, because it's seeing that there's so many contributions to the global potluck of spirit, that there's so much that comes to the table from all of these different traditions. And sadly, there's been a triumphalism in religious life that I'm right, you're wrong, kind of. If I'm right, you're wrong. If you're right, then I'm wrong, so therefore you got to be wrong because I can't be wrong. I've got to be right. And sadly, we think about the power of religion in this world and its history, and how much destruction has happened in the name, and continues to happen in the name of the name of the mystery of life, God. And it's tragic. It's unbelievably tragic. We haven't learned yet how to be human to our potential. We're very reptilian. We're not so much mammals yet. As I understand it, and as my teachers and colleagues, many of them understand it, is that we're evolving, that life isn't static, that we don't endlessly repeat the same stuff, but we're here with a great capacity to learn, to adapt, to have new insights, to reframe, to see new possibilities. There's a well-known passage, they'll beat their swords into plowshares. So what does that mean, really? Is that just some fantasy ideal out there, or is that really saying that there's an imperative for us to learn how to transform a military-industrial economy into an economy that's based on service and education and health and all of the things that humanity really needs, rather than the destruction that happens with all of the resource that we pour into it? Do we have that capacity to cross that threshold of consciousness where we stop seeing each other as the enemy, but rather a complementary puzzle piece, something that we're placed here to discover in a loving way? So that discovery of the unity of life, of creation, is really the essence of the Jewish teachings, and the sense of being transformative, that we come into the world, and hopefully we've used our energy in a way that we've done some repair on the way and perpetuated the teachings to pass those forward so that the next generation will also pick up and stay in that continuity of a sense of long-range purpose until we get to a place where truly we learn how to live in peace and with justice, and that we learn how to live with nature in a way that we're the caretakers and not the exploiters. We're so, we have a lot to learn. The rabbis look at the Torah. The Torah is that's where we begin with our sacred text. And the Torah, according to rabbinic tradition, the heart of the Torah is these words, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. It's the heart. So if somebody is really practicing the highest form of Judaism, they're practicing loving their neighbor as their self, feeling a unity, feeling that you are like me. We're not really separate. We're part of life. We're part of creation together. And our discovery is of that connection. It doesn't say, all these details that are ritual, and I have nothing against ritual I enjoy ritual practice if it cultivates something, a quality inside that I respect. But I don't want ritual to become the object of my adoration. It's much more to remember that loving your neighbor as yourself. In the Torah, there's the teaching, we were slaves in Egypt. And so that what comes up 36 times in some form in the Torah is a statement that you were slaves in Egypt, therefore you know the heart of a stranger, be kind to the stranger. Love the stranger, for you were strangers. Over and over again it comes up that if we suffer, find meaning in the suffering. Find meaning in the suffering and do something good with it. Learn to be compassionate. So that's a very, really deep, important lesson that it's not so obvious because it's not packaged in a ritual. It's just how you look at the world, how we see people, how we respond to what's going on the street when we're walking down the street. That's where we're living. And to be walking in the presence of the divine on the street in our family conversations, that's where we really live it out. And it's wonderful to elevate times with, a sacredness and activities as sacred. But our task in Judaism is to elevate the world and to bring into our consciousness and into our shared reality a sensitivity that we're in the presence of something very sacred, life.
I'm really curious. So this fundamental verse from the Torah, love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That gets translated as an active principle of knowing your neighbor, knowing yourself, caring for your neighbor, and so there seems to be a direct extension of compassion, caring, etc. Are those principles that say the youngest Jewish children learn those things as they're growing up, and how does that work?
So first, I want to make it not so pure and simple.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this is, that there are many different interpretations of how to read different texts.
Okay.
I'm reading it in a way that many other people read it, and I will stand by that reading. Some people will say, well, love your neighbor as yourself, but who's your neighbor? Is it just the other Jewish people? Or is it just the other people that believe in monotheism? Is it just the people that are this, or is it just the people, who's your neighbor? So it doesn't get so, as soon as humanity gets a hold of a great teaching, we can mess it up pretty quick. We have to keep challenging ourselves to say, okay, well, how big do I want my world to be? How much do I want to find unity in this world? How much do I believe that we're really, DNA is, we're life. Ultimately, if we truly believe that everyone is the image of God, that doesn't mean that we're all pure and we're all doing our best. We understand that we have inclinations to do good and inclinations to do less than good. And if we relate to each other in a way where we see the good and affirm that in each other and cultivate that, then I think we lift each other up. If we're always looking at the downside, oh, you're garbage, throw these people away because of this or that, and we stop looking for the image of God. I mean, that's our responsibility to keep looking. Their responsibility is to look too, inside. But ours hopefully is not to give up on them, because we're giving up on life. We're giving up, we're saying the unity can't be unified, that we won't come to that place. And not that, some things are ideals and we probably won't get to see them in our lifetime. And the Talmud, our body of teachings and law, says that it's not for us to complete the task. It's not for you to complete the task, but neither are you free from your responsibility. And so to work as hard as we can, in the most devoted way that we can do it, to elevate the world and to elevate our consciousness and our lives, our actions, our feelings, our thoughts. But to not think that we're going to get to be there for the grand curtain call and ta-da, we did it, yay for us. It might be many generations. So that's one of the beauties about passing a tradition forward, is that consciousness gets preserved, and we say to our children, learn about freedom. When we have the Passover Seder, we talk not only about the liberation from 3,500 years ago, but what's today? Where's oppression happening today? In our own lives, where am I being an oppressor? Where am I being oppressed?
Thank you for all of the questions and comments. And most importantly, thank you, Rabbi Yitz. It's great to,
It's great to be in
great to
community with
share.
you. Great to be in community.